Exam Prep IAS. Very warm good morning to everyone. I hope all of you are doing good. I welcome you back to today's session of the Hindu Newspaper Analysis, a place where we analyze the day's Hindu newspaper, both from the mains and from the prelims examination point of view. I really hope that you have been attending all these sessions regularly without missing out on any of these. Also, as you know, you can download the PDF of these lectures. The link to download that is in the description of the video, so please check that out as well. I also hope that all of you have been attending the target prelims sessions. For those specifically who are planning to appear for prelims exam on the 16th of June, we have a target prelims crash course running on YouTube. The class is at 7 p.m. every single day, where we discuss about 25 questions from each and every subject that will be covered in the prelims examination. This is the schedule. Today is class number 3 of Indian economy. Do attend that, and then Sunday and Monday, that is tomorrow and day after, will be my sessions, international relations, a couple of sessions where we are discussing important questions from this part. Then we also have classes running up till 11th of June. So make sure you don't miss out any of these. In case you have missed out, please do watch these classes by going to the entire playlist. Let's come back to what we have for you today. The first article that we will be discussing is about the IMEC. Now, when the G20 was organized by India, there was a lot of important things that took place. However, the most important outcome was the IMEC, India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. That was a huge infrastructure project involving India, Middle Eastern countries such as Saudi Arabia, UAE, and European countries such as Italy, France, etc. Everyone thought this will be a game changer. It will be able to counter the Chinese spread of BRI. But ever since the Gaza war has begun, this project has disrupted. The reason being that Israel was also supposed to play a major role in this project, but now with Israel on an offensive, this project seems to be in a limbo. The article here talks about this project and also suggests an alternate mechanism of how we can still go ahead and revive this project. Second article is about the DNT, that is the Denotified and Nomadic tribes. These are the tribes that the British used to call as the criminal tribes. We'll be discussing what the status is in India right now. Where do they stand? What are the issues that they have? And what are the different committees and commissions formed regarding them? Then from the prelims point of view, the first article in the WTO, India is being pressurized to support the plurilateral pact on investment that India does not want to sign. We'll be discussing what that pact is. Why does India not want to sign this? Next article, US and Egypt have agreed that they will allow aid to Gaza, that is the UN aid coming in through the Kerem Shalom. This is a passage through which you can enter Gaza area from Egypt. So we'll be discussing where that is. It's a map-based topic basically where you can be asked about its location. In the end, we'll be discussing about how in Myanmar, China is looking to revive its big dam project. So China was supposed to build a huge dam in Myanmar about 12-13 years ago. The project was first given the green light in 2009, but because of environmental issues, because of protest, the project got shelved. Now the military of Myanmar that is ruling over the country, that is called the Junta, they are again trying to revive this project. So we'll be discussing what that is and the details of that. Let's begin with the first article then. The first article here is about IMEC. Now all those who have been preparing for the civil services exam for at least, I would say, 6 months, you would know what is IMEC. This was in the news since the G20. But in case you are new here and you don't know what is IMEC, you just started to prepare, don't worry. Let's do a very brief recap. Let me first show you the photo here. So look at this. This entire project was finalized in the G20 summit. This is called the India Middle East Economic Corridor. The idea is to have an alternate connectivity from India all the way to Europe through Middle Eastern countries such as UAE, Saudi Arabia, Israel. It will end somewhere in Greece. Italy will also be a part of it. So basically, to ensure a smooth passage of products from India all the way to Europe, it will consist of roadways or highways being built in between, rail routes being built in between, ports being built specially to handle the capacity. This was the IMEC project, very optimistic project. Billions and billions of dollars would have been spent on it. Saudi Arabia, UAE, countries that have very deep pockets, they were the ones who had agreed to finalize, and they were the ones who agreed to finance this project as well. So when in the G20 summit, when this project was signed, there were great hopes that finally we'll be able to counter China's Belt and Road Initiative. India would have much better connectivity to Europe. Our cost of transportation will reduce, so on and so forth. A lot of great things were said. However, ever since Israel, Hamas or Gaza war, whatever you want to call it, has started, since then the project has been in a limbo. The reason is, ever since the war has started, the countries in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, UAE, have been urging Israel to stop its attack on Gaza. Since Israel is not stopping its attack, these countries cannot collaborate with Israel on a common project. And that's why the project is in a bit of a limbo. Add to that the problem of ships being attacked in the Red Sea. Now in this map, this area, this water body that you see, this is the Red Sea. Now a lot of ships in the Red Sea in the past few months have been attacked. Attacked by whom? Houthi rebels. Rebels from Yemen. So this is Yemen. There's a civil war going in Yemen for a long time. The Houthi rebels who are fighting against the Yemenis government, they have been attacking ships in the Red Sea. And the attacks have been so brutal that many ships are now not taking this route. They are taking the much longer route going from south of Africa, from the Cape of Good Hope, and increasing their travel time. So this is a problem. This entire ambitious project seems to be stuck in between. Now what the author is saying, apart from elaborating what the project was, author is suggesting an alternative to this as well. Let's see. So basically, if you look at this particular project, India has been looking to have partnerships with other countries in the region as well. Just a couple of weeks back, we saw India, Iran finally sign a 10-year deal for the Chabahar port that has been built with Indian collaboration. Equally important, or even more important, is the IMEC, which is tightly stuck in between. Now, IMEC is a project that is being bankrolled, or that will be financed in large by PGII. PGII is Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment. We'll discuss about it in the end, but in short what this is, the G7 countries thought that China is forcing smaller countries into its debt. China gives loans to smaller countries and they can't repay China, and it becomes a very problematic situation. So these G7 countries thought, let's help other countries to not be dependent on China. So they started this initiative called PGII. The entire idea was that they will fund infrastructure projects around the world so that they don't need to go to China. So this is their idea, the IMEC project. It is one of their ideas. Now this IMEC project has a lot of infrastructure planned. It will have an east corridor where India will be linked to the Arabian Gulf, and a northern corridor where Gulf region will be linked to Europe. Multiple ports will be involved. From India, Mundra, Kandla, Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust will be involved. From Middle East, ports in UAE, including the ones in Dubai, Abu Dhabi will be involved. Ports in Saudi Arabia will be involved. In Israel, the famous Haifa port will be involved. And in Europe also, ports in Greece, Italy and France will be involved. Now, these kind of projects require billions and billions of dollars. It will include construction of ship to rail connections, railway networks, road transport, electricity cables, hydrogen pipelines and whatnot. In the end, it is expected that it would reduce the cost of transportation of goods from Europe to India by 40% to 30%. Now, again, this is why all this expense is being done. So that in the long run, the cost of transportation will reduce and the countries will not be dependent on Chinese infrastructure. That is the entire idea of the IMEC. However, there has been a great impact of the Gaza war on this project. What impact exactly? As I told you, the first, Red Sea. Now the Houthi rebels, which are showing solidarity to the people living in Gaza, to Hamas, they are attacking Western countries and their merchant ships in the Red Sea, so that the Western countries force Israel to stop their offensive. So please do understand the situation. In Yemen, they have the Houthi rebels. These Houthis support Hamas. So what they are doing is, they are attacking the Western country ships in the Red Sea. Why? So that the Western countries, in turn, European countries, US, can force Israel to stop their offensive. So that is number one. Because of this, a lot of ships, in order to be safe, are taking a much longer route. If you just imagine the world map in front of you, from Europe, if you have to, let's say this is Europe, you have to come to Asia. You are going all the way south of entire African continent to come to Asia. So it's a much longer route. You go south of South Africa and then come to Asia. Apart from this, Iran has also threatened that they might also come in if Israel does not stop its offensive. Iran has threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz in the north, from where most of the crude oil is shipped to other parts, including India. Let me first show you where is Strait of Hormuz. So look at this map. This is Iran. Let me change the color here. So this is Iran. This is Oman. This area that you see here, this is the Strait of Hormuz. So this area is the Strait of Hormuz. So a lot of oil is exported to other countries, including India, from this area. Now, Iran is saying that they will close down this area to build even more pressure on the Western countries. So again, this also becomes a problematic situation. Apart from that, Israel has two ports which will be a part of IMEC, that is the Eilat and the Haifa port. They have also suffered a lot of issues because of attacks that are going through the Red Sea. Because the countries now don't want to send their merchant ships to the Red Sea, these ports are not earning as much. See, how does a port earn the money? A port earns the money when the ships come in, stay at the port, either load or unload. But when the ships are not coming in the port will not be able to earn. So they don't take any tax or any toll when the ships are not coming. India's Adani Group is also involved here. It was India's Adani Group along with some other industrialists that had purchased the Haifa port in Jan. They were also expecting to expand this, but with the Gaza war, the traffic on the port has decreased considerably, and that has also made sure, or that has also resulted into economic losses. This is the other map of again the same area. If you can just imagine, towards this side somewhere here will be India. So basically imagine this is Pakistan, this is Afghanistan, this is Iran, this is the Strait of Hormuz, this is the Red Sea. So now imagine this. Now, why am I showing you this map? Because this map will tell you what the author is suggesting. So before I come to what the author is suggesting, author is saying the IMEC project, in order to be successful, has to include two more countries here. Two countries that can provide alternate connectivity route here, which is not affected by these Houthi Yemens or Houthis in Yemen or Iran. One country, Oman, and second, Egypt. The author says that these two are extremely important if we have to ensure success of IMEC. Oman gives access to a lot of ports to India. So India does not really have to go, let's say within this Persian Gulf, we don't have to go. So this is basically UAE. So we don't have to go to this area, Strait of Hormuz, to come to UAE. We can basically offload the stuff into Oman, and from here the connectivity can start by railway or by road. The other country that can be involved here is Egypt. How? If you have Egypt as a part of this project, you don't have to come to Red Sea. So you can bypass Red Sea because Egypt has ports in the Mediterranean Sea. So that is a much safer area, and that is how it can be helpful. So again, as long as this transportation is happening over road or rail, it is safer. The problem right now is in the water body. So you have to look at a way to bypass Red Sea and to bypass the Strait of Hormuz. So how can we do that? By including Oman and including Egypt. That is a suggestion that the author is giving. I have told you multiple times, these articles are just opinion pieces. That's the opinion of the author, much learned people. If you want, you can ignore that. If you want, you can say, no, this is not a good idea. But this is the suggestion that the author is giving. Interestingly, both the countries have had good relationship with India. The ruler of Oman was given the Gandhi Peace Prize by India in 2019. India-Oman maintain a very good relationship. In fact, India and Oman have formed an investment fund also with 50-50 partnership. From India's side, it is the SBI, State Bank of India, that is holding that partnership. So India, Oman have historically had good relationship. With Egypt also, we saw the president of Egypt come to India very recently. There were a lot of talks. So with Egypt also, we have a good relationship. More interestingly, both these countries have also maintained a good relationship with Israel now. So with Israel also, they won't have a problem in going ahead with this project. And that is how we will be able to bypass all these ports that are in danger. So UAE's ports that are in danger because of Iran's threats, Oman can be a good way ahead for that. Historically also, India has traded through small boats going to Oman. Those are called the dhaus. A lot of merchants from Oman have also been coming to India over the years. So it's not a very new idea. It's an old idea. Just have to revive that so that we can bypass the existing threats right now. The article mentions about PGII, the initiative behind the IMEC, the group that was formed by the G7 nations specifically to counter the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. So a bit of detail about that. It came up in 2021 through the G7 countries. It was basically a renaming of an American idea. The American president had actually come up with an idea called Build Back Better, B3W World. Now this is where this idea, first of all given by US, was not accepted by the other countries. It was about spending much more money. But after that, a similar idea came up with G7 countries contributing money to build infrastructure around the world. The idea is to mobilize $600 billion from the G7 countries by 2027 to build critical infrastructure. And again, the essential component is to drive the nations away from China so that they don't fall into Chinese debt trap. And it has happened in many countries. The biggest example is in our neighborhood. The reason why Hambantota port was financed by China in Sri Lanka was that Sri Lanka says that no one was ready to give us the loan. They went to World Bank, they denied. They came to India also, we denied. So they had to go to China. So that a similar situation does not occur, that is why this initiative has been started now. This was our first article for the day. The second article for the day is about the DNT. DNT stands for Denotified and Nomadic Tribes. Denotified and Nomadic Tribes. Let's first try and understand what exactly do you mean by Denotified and Nomadic Tribes. So, when the British were here, around 1872, what they did was they passed a law under which they said that some tribes in India are being notified as criminal tribes. So the British said that some tribes in India are criminal tribes. Means if you are born in that tribe, you are regarded as a criminal automatically. Because the British thought that people from these tribes, a lot of them go into crime. So why not by default, let's assume all the people born in this tribe will be called as criminals only. So they were called the criminal tribes. They were notified as criminal tribes by the British. So after independence in 1952, the government of India denotified them. So that is the meaning of the word denotified. The British had notified them, that is given a tag to them that these are criminal tribes. Indian government after independence denotified them that no, these are not criminal tribes. So this happened in 1952. Second word is nomadic. As you know, nomadic means those communities that move from one place to another. They don't have a permanent home. They move from one place to another. For example, if they are into trading, they will come to certain area, sell their stuff, have a market, live there for a week, 2 weeks, month or so, and then they'll move to the other area. So they don't have any private property, any private home, and they keep on moving. These are called denotified and nomadic tribes. British, for example, were against nomadic tribes. See, any government, and not just the British, no government would really want people to keep moving from one place to other. Because when you keep moving from one place to other, it's difficult for the government to keep a track. The government wants to identify you, the government wants to know where you are, the government wants to see what your address is, the government wants to ensure that they can take action if they want to. So all that is possible only when you have a permanent address. When you don't have permanent address, you keep on moving from one place to another. The government usually don't appreciate this. Anyways, now this article is written on these tribes, that is the DNT. The idea was, after independence, it was thought that this situation will improve. However, that has not happened. Over the decades, we have seen that they have extremely low literacy rates. Their participation in the workforce is very, very, very meager. A lot of government schemes have still not reached them, and they are still neglected. Although a lot of these tribes have now been designated as scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and backward classes, so they do get reservation benefits as such. But there is such a lack of awareness amongst these tribes about the government initiatives that it has not really resulted in any good way in their lives improving. As I told you, it was in 1952 that these were denotified by the government. Now, the census that was last conducted does not have a special category for DNT. So there is no way of knowing the exact population of these tribes. But there are many different estimates. Some people, some experts who keep an eye on these tribes say that about 20 crore people across the country belong to these communities. Again, this is not an official figure. It is not covered under census. This is a figure given by people who study these tribes, who are working in this field for some time. They assume that the number would be close to about 20 crore. As per the National Commission for Denotified, Nomadic and Semi-Nomadic Tribes in 2008, they said there are about 60 nomadic tribes in Andhra Pradesh. A lot of them spread across South India, and they are in North India as well, but many of them are seen to be in South India. In many parts of these tribes, as I said, government initiatives have not reached. Concept of family planning also is not followed. Most of these families have over 4 children. There are very few families where you will see where pairs or couples have less than 4 children. That means they are largely populated, and there are various reasons for that as well. If you ask your grandparents also, they'll tell you one of the reasons why people in the earlier generations used to have so many kids is that a common presumption was that not all the kids will survive. So presumption was that, let's say if a family has 4 kids, maybe 1 or 2 will pass away due to a problem, and that was the reason why a lot of kids were reproduced. Similar is the case here. When you have tribal community that do not have access to great health care, when they can still fall ill to common diseases and they may pass away, that is when you see a pattern of a lot more children being born. Because again, they are, it's a crude word to say, but they are kind of compensating for the future. They are kind of compensating that this might happen. And that is why you see a high population in these areas where the sanitation facilities or the healthcare facilities are not up to the mark. Even amongst the politicians, their representation is almost zero. Not many politicians even know what are DNTs. There is not even a mention of DNTs in the Indian Constitution. We do not see a lot of people fighting elections who belong to these particular tribes. They have been excluded socially. They have not been able to get their voices heard. Again, they are a part of scheduled tribes. Some of them, they are a part of backward classes. But they need to have a level of awareness first to actually take advantage of the government reservation, to actually take advantage of the government schemes that have been launched, and this has not happened. Now, just to again go deeper into these DNT, that is the denotified, nomadic and semi-nomadic tribes. As I told you, the British called them the criminal tribes or notified them as the criminal tribes in 1871. Basically notified the people in these tribes as born criminals. Government denotified them in 1952. They were also listed as nomadic by the government of India. Nomadic and semi-nomadic are those that don't live at a single place. They keep on moving either to sell stuff, organize markets, or basically their agricultural activity or agriculture profession is as such. They are, most of them belong to scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, other backward classes, but there are still some of them who are not under any of this categorization. There are multiple committees and commissions formed in the past. that have suggested to the government how to improve their situation. Going back to 1947, when Criminal Tribes Inquiry Committee was formed, they were the ones who first suggested that we should decriminalize them. We also have the Anant Sayanam Iyengar Committee of 1949 that led to the repeal of Criminal Tribes Act that the British had passed. Then the first OBC Commission, the second OBC Commission, the BP Mandal Commission that you call, they also gave suggestions of including a lot of these tribes into backward classes. The most recent one was the National Commission to Review the Working of the Constitution in 2002, where they had talked about how these tribes have been stigmatized, how the treatment given to them was not up to the mark, how they have been exploited, and how the government needs to take special care and ensure that social justice is provided to them. These are a couple of articles from the mains exam point of view. Now let's move on to the prelims exam point of view news. First one, at the WTO, India is being forced by other countries to sign a plurilateral pact on investment. Let's first understand the background of it. So, a few months back, China introduced a new initiative in WTO. They said that let's have this kind of a pact called IFD. IFD here stands for Investment Facilitation for Development. Investment Facilitation for Development. So basically the idea was simple, that those countries who sign the pact should make favorable policies and laws for investors. Anyone who invests money into their country, they should be given a lot more power, they should be given a lot more options. For example, when the government, let's assume, makes a major policy. Let's take a simple example. Let's say the government is making a new policy for airlines or air traffic in India. This provision would say that the government should first interact with the investors who have invested money in this sector in India. Only then they should form the policies. So this is the idea, to safeguard the rights of the investors. Now India has not signed it. Why? India says a couple of things. First argument that India has, India says that WTO is for trade and not for investment. So why is it that investment related treaties are being discussed at WTO? India says that if you want to talk about trade, how to liberalize trade, how to make trade better, we are happy to discuss this. But we don't want WTO to be a platform where investment is discussed. First. Second argument that India has is that it goes against our national sovereignty. As I told you earlier, one of the provisions of this agreement would be that if you are making a big policy or a specific policy about a sector, you first should consult with the investors who have invested money in this sector in India. The government of India says that no, we as the national government have the right to make whatever policies that we want. We don't want any compromise there. It is against our national sovereignty, and that is why India has not signed it. Now, usually WTO and these kind of platforms work on a consensus basis. So usually what happens, if each and every member of WTO says yes, only then that particular agreement will be adopted, usually. But this plurilateral agreement or plurilateral pact does not work in that manner. Even if India does not agree to it, that does not mean the pact will not be passed. It means that whichever country has signed it, it will be applicable to them. So India not signing it does not mean it will not be passed. The reason why countries still want India to sign it is because a lot of investor money is in India. A lot of investor money will come to India in the future. So they would want India also to be a part of it. Interestingly, not just India, even US has not been a part of it. Why? Same issues, and the third issue obviously is it is backed by China. So when China is initiating something, you would obviously not expect India and USA to be very enthusiastic about it. We would obviously not want this because we think that there is an ulterior motive that China would have. So India has still not become a part of it. About 123 member countries of the WTO, including EU, have finalized this pact. So they have finalized this. Again, as I told you, This one is not a pact that will only come into being on 100% consensus. It is a plurilateral pact, means it would be binding only on the signatories. So those who have signed it. Non-members, when I say non-member, not WTO non-members. It means non-members of the agreement, like India, US, etc. So non-members like India, US, South Africa, it will not be binding on them. India stayed out of it because we don't think investment is a matter that should be discussed at WTO, and we do not think that it is in line with our national sovereignty. There are multiple pillars of this agreement, including transparency on investment measures, streamlining, speeding up investment related authorizations, enhancing international cooperation, information sharing, etc. In one of these, if you look at these closely, all these words are important. Whenever any agreement has this phrase, information sharing, you will see India trying to avoid it. Because when you talk about information sharing, that means that the government of the country would be expected to share some data, some information with either other country or the investor. That also is seen as a compromise on the national sovereignty. So when you see phrases such as information sharing, you would see India specifically raising an objection. I'm not saying India will never sign it, but it will always raise an objection that we don't want this, we are not comfortable with this. Here are a bit more details about this IFD, that is in the question, Investment Facilitation for Development. The initiative first was introduced in 2017 by 70 countries. Over the years, it has been accepted by over 120 countries now. It will create a legally binding provision to facilitate flow of investment. It will ensure that the countries make rules on open, transparent investment flow and also resolve the matters as soon as possible. This was finalized in November 2023 with about 120 countries accepting this, over 70% of the membership. These are the key areas. Again, India is not a part of this. US also is not a part of this. South Africa and some other countries also have still not accepted this agreement so far. Next news, US and Egypt have allowed that they will ensure that some UN aid reaches Gaza through the Kerem Shalom. The Israel offensive on Gaza is still continuing. They keep on saying that they will attack the southern city of Gaza called the Rafah. For many months we are hearing about the probable Rafah invasion, where Israel says that Hamas terrorists are hiding in Rafah, so we will invade it. International community does not want that to happen. In fact, a few months back in UN, there was a resolution asking Israel to ensure immediate ceasefire. Interestingly, even the US did not vote against it. Even the US just abstained from voting. They did not vote against ceasefire. So even the most diehard supporter of Israel, that is the US, does not want this attack to continue. Now US and Egypt have decided that at least some aid should reach Gaza because all the areas have been blocked. So let me first show you where this area is on the map and then we'll come back. So this is basically the border. This is where Egypt starts. So I'll just change the pen. So this is where Egypt starts. This is the Rafah crossing. So basically you can enter from Egypt to here to reach the Rafah city, and this is the other area. This is the Kerem Shalom area that is in the news that again has been closed. Now, how do you reach Gaza? If you have to send some help to Gaza, this is Israel. So the entire part here is Israel. So if you have to send some help to Gaza, either you come in from here, Mediterranean Sea, that is also being blocked by Israel, or you have to come through Egypt. This is Egypt. Now from Egypt also there are two main ways, Rafah and the Kerem Shalom. Israel has been blocking that as well. This is the Rafah city, as you can see, south of Gaza. This is what Israel is planning to invade. Now after a lot of negotiations, finally this particular crossing called the Kerem Shalom will be opened for some aid to reach the city of Gaza. This is this territory. Now from the examination point of view, what is important for you is to remember this, the name of this crossing that can be asked. This crossing, that is a Kerem Shalom crossing, It's a crossing to enter Gaza through Egypt. This is a place that will be reopened to send the aid from UN to Gaza. It will come through Egypt, will enter to the southern city of Rafah, and then Israel's border with Palestinian territory. This is where the aid will be crossed. I'll show you one more map. So this is a Google map photo. So this is Egypt, this is the Gaza area, and this is the Kerem Shalom crossing, wherein there is an opening where they can reach, the trucks etc. can reach Gaza. As I told you just a few months back, the UN adopted a resolution asking immediate ceasefire from Israel side in Gaza. Whenever such a resolution is introduced, US always stands with Israel, but this time around even US abstained from voting. They did not vote against Israel. They did not vote in favor, but at least they did not vote against Israel. So all the 15 members of UNSC, don't be confused, UNSC has 15 members, 5 are permanent members, 10 are non-permanent members. Only permanent members have a veto power, others have just a normal vote. All 14 except the US voted in favor of the ceasefire, that they should stop. US abstained from voting. So basically Israel has been asked to ensure ceasefire, but they are not accepting it, because UN resolutions, even when they are accepted, the power to impose these resolutions, or the responsibility rather to impose these resolutions, is with the UN Security Council only. So only they can come up and force Israel to accept this. Whether they do it or not remains to be seen. Next article from Myanmar, that is a neighboring country, the Myanmar Junta. This JUNTA is pronounced as Junta, okay? HUNTA. Junta means the Myanmar military. Myanmar has been under the military rule since Feb 2021. Not the first time that they have been under the military rule, but again it has been a long time. It's been over 3 years now that democracy has not returned. Countries such as China don't mind it. They have opened up their relationship with Myanmar anyways. China has been trying to build a huge dam project in Myanmar, and the project first was planned in 2009 when Xi Jinping used to be the vice president. So Xi Jinping, when he was the vice president of China, he was the one who personally visited Myanmar, and he was the one who was a major supporter of this project. But at that time the project got shelved. The reason was that there were a lot of environmental protests. There were a lot of experts and Myanmar population also that came up and said that no, this project will harm the environment. Now this project is being built on the Irrawaddy river, which is one of the biggest diverse hotspot or biodiversity hotspots in the entire world. So there are allegations that it will harm the wildlife around this. The interesting part is this dam will produce electricity, and the idea is 90% of the electricity produced will be sent back to China. Now this is interesting. 90% of electricity that the dam produces will be sent back to China. Only 10% of it will remain in Myanmar. Now usually what happens, let's say a country like China wants to build such a project so that they can have their electricity coming in. What they would do is they would try and lobby with the people in power. So let's assume the Myanmar Junta, Myanmar military that is in power. In order to have a grip over the country, the military of Myanmar would require supply of weapons, supply of ammunitions. No other country right now will supply them all these things. America obviously would not. Other countries also would not. This is where China comes in. That is how politics works. China says, okay, we'll give you the weapons, we'll give you ammunitions, we'll support you whatever you want. But then in return, what will you do? You give a green light to this project. That is how military leaderships of the countries work. That's how when the countries are under international pressure, that is how they behave. That is how they are trying to make partnerships with countries such as China. In the end, the problem will be with the common people who are living in this area. It's a huge dam project worth $3.6 billion. It has been suspended for over 10 years. It is called the Myitsone Dam Project. Myitsone Dam Project has faced multiple protests in Myanmar in the past decade or so. It's a mega 6,000 watt project supposed to start in 2011, but it did not. The idea is that around 90% of the power produced will be exported to China. So all the environmental damage is yours. Myanmar will keep all the environmental damage. Harm to biodiversity is yours. You keep it. electricity that you produce, you give it to us. That is what Chinese games of the rule are. That rules of the game rather are that you take all that is harming you, but we will take the entire outcome of it. In 2015, there was an environmental assessment done by Myanmar government when they were not under the military rule. Myanmar government had asked a commission to look into it, and the commission said that dam should not be constructed. It will obstruct the flow of the river. Even the Worldwide Fund for Nature in 2018 said 34 million people in Myanmar live nearby the Irrawaddy river basin. Roughly 2/3 of the country's population, their lives would be disrupted. But Myanmar, because of the Chinese pressure, Chinese influence, because they're a part of the Belt and Road Initiative, would most probably go ahead with this project. China is one of the few countries in the world that are still supporting Myanmar and are helping Myanmar continue with this military coup in the long run. This is the river that we are talking about, the Irrawaddy river, and this would be the area, or this will be the place where the project is being built. As you can see, the Myitsone project, do remember the name for the prelims examination. It's Myitsone Dam project in Myanmar, just next to India. This brings us to the end of today's session of the Hindu Newspaper Analysis. Here are a couple of practice questions. First question about the IMEC and the suggestions to overcome the hurdles that the project is facing right now. Second question is about the DNTs, Denotified, nomadic and semi-nomadic tribes. Try and answer these. You can use a student answer writing portal. Place your answers there. You can give feedback to each other's answers. The link is in the description of the video. Thank you so much for joining. Again, 7 p.m. is where the target crash course is going on every evening. Do join that as well. I'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Jai Hind.